All right. Well, better on the volume. The sound's a little bit awkward in this room, so just let us know if it gets fuzzy or muffled. But I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. I'm looking and seeing a lot of faces. I know City Manager Greg Nyhoff is here tonight, and various city staff. I saw Terrence, Public Works, and Offshore Planning Manager somewhere. I'm probably missing somebody else. Thank you all for coming out. We're looking forward to a constructive evening. Specifically, what we're looking for is how to craft the goals and the vision of the future of the Mare Island Regional Park. So my name is Will Murat. I'm the Assistant to the City Manager for Economic Development. I'm joined by Erin Hanford. She's the Mare Island Project Manager, and Justin Peters, who's our Property Development and Asset Manager. So the agenda for tonight is pretty simple. We're looking for you to be talking more than us, and we're looking to record that, and I don't mean necessarily video, that's not us, but to record it on paper. So as we go throughout the night, we really want to capture your feedback, capture your vision for this regional asset, so that we can craft an RFQ that directs the future for decades to come. Where does this community hold the value there, and how will we proceed? So with that, we'll launch into it a little bit. Again, we'll kind of go through what is the regional park, what are the property designations and the maps, and there are some maps around the room. And we'll have a brief kind of group discussion, and what we're looking to there is to identify what you think are the challenges and the opportunities. And again, it's, the purpose is for us to capture that in summary form as quickly as we can and kind of capture it on paper, and we'll take that back. Then after that group discussion, kind of brief discussion, then we're going to break out into, because there's so many people here, we're going to break out into 3 groups. And okay, duly noted.
Sierra Club, and I came here to hear everybody. I didn't come here to hear small groups discussing amongst themselves.
Okay, duly noted. So we'll break up into 3 small groups.
Wait, I object.
I heard you. We're going to break up into okay, well, we can have a separate meeting later. Tonight is about hearing every voice, and given the number of people in the room, we're not going to be able to hear.
Separate groups.
Because it's going to be captured on paper and published on the city website.
So we won't be able to hear.
Yeah. Can I continue? Can I continue?
You can't.
Well, we're getting off to a bad start. The purpose is an hour and a half for us to meet and talk about a constructive conversation.
Which is, well, this process
Sir.
has not been a fair process from the very start. And I just want to say that.
Okay, you said it. Thank you,
I
sir.
can't hear the other people's comment because they're in some other part of the room. That doesn't benefit me. I want to be a part of a development of an idea for this park. And I need to hear everybody. We all need to hear everybody.
Your feedback will be recorded. It will be available for everybody to look over. You can look over the other group's feedback. It will be recorded in that format. But we don't have the time to sit here and have 100 people have a 100-person discussion. That's not a constructive way.
I'm amazed to see this many people here because I live on Mare Island, and I didn't know about this meeting until I went out to the preserve this weekend and was told this was going on. I went to the city website today. There is no information on the city website.
So we can have a constructive conversation, or we could just end right now. Because so those of you who would like to participate,
of the city trying to fly things under the radar when it doesn't want to hear from the public. It started with the
those of you who would like to participate in the constructive dialogue that we've arranged for tonight, you're welcome to stay. I'll provide about 5 minutes for those of you who are angry with the setup. You can leave.
So we didn't get that?
Right now. No, is that an outright no?
We've created a format that allows us to gather the most information in an efficient manner and make sure that we can process and aggregate that and feed that into the RFQ process.
The information you're getting back is that the audience wants a different format.
We can talk about scheduling a second meeting with a different format. Tonight, this is the format we're going to use.
When you do small groups, I'm very experienced with management. When you do small groups, you're containing the people and making them feel like they're productive, but they're not. It's a way of isolating and dividing, rather than unifying and letting everybody do each other's work. So I think it's an inappropriate process. I know you work hard to fix it, but it's not going to be successful.
Duly noted.
I have a question. Why
now?
Why are we doing this RFQ thing when we?
I haven't been able to get to that because we've been talking about the structure tonight. So,
All right. Well, that's a key question here.
This is what happened with the big police forum member we had downstairs. We were going to the small room, and people came with all this passion that diffused the passion. By the time you got the feedback, all the passion was just kind of scattered. You lose the heart and what people came to say. I felt like it just was a way of pulling the rug out of what people really wanted to say. It really diffused the energy. That's what they're saying. Everyone is speaking. Everybody.
So let me get through the introduction so we can actually understand what it is we're here to talk about without interruption. And then you guys are free to stand up and shout however much you want, but it won't be recorded on any kind of format that we can use because it's not manageable. But if that's what you want to do, is if you want to share with each other, we're happy to provide the venue and the space for you to do that. But if you want staff to be able to understand the vision and understand the democratic voice of the people, the collective voice, and aggregate that information and feed that into the goals that are going to follow this project for the next 1, 2, 3 decades, this is the format that we need to conduct that in.
I think we are offering you some resource in that we are having this videotape, so if that's any help to you, if it doesn't go the way you intended, we'll be happy.
The way I intended was to have breakout groups so that we can gather the information and we can flesh out people's ideas in more than just a 2 minutes at the mic. Because I understand passion, but passion is something that we need to convert that into action. We need to convert that into constructive dialogue and feedback that's going to feed these goals. Passion only gets us so far.
I think that people
Scott,
might
12
take
years.
2 minutes and have an idea of
I told you the plan. I'm happy to present. You guys can talk.
Okay, so now the evidence is on the clock, so this is probably a good time. Why don't we take a vote so it's a legitimate process?
This meeting ends at 8 o'clock. If you want to talk for that period of time, that's fine. And we're not going to be able to record that information in any meaningful format. If the group wants to do that, fine. Let me go through the introduction, and you can take off with it how you want.
If you break into small groups and have discussion, will there then be an opportunity for each group, or all of us together then, to get the feedback from each group that we will be able to comment on, or will there be another meeting that we can participate in to consolidate the ideas that were generated tonight? Will it be a continuous process that the community would be involved in until you come to the end result?
And I think, given the number of people in the room, I think it would be foolish to expect that we're going to have everybody arrive at one vision in an hour and a half. So we're happy to have a second meeting. I don't know what's causing the feedback. Can you adjust? We don't get this feedback normally. It's got to be your equipment. Can you get rid of the buzz? Or at least turn it off for a second so I can verify that's what it is. And if it's not, it's fine. Just click it off for a second. Let me see. If it's not, that's fine. I'm trying to figure out why it's.
Because you need to adjust your mixer.
You know how to do that? Yep. Thank you, sir. Sorry for the buzz. We'll get that fixed. So I think it's fine if we want to aggregate the information as we've constructed here tonight We can provide that on the website for people to see and digest, and then come back and put it in a format that people can continue the discussion and coalesce that information. One of the exercises we have here tonight, and you'll see that you have some dots in your packet, is to allow you to, once the information is up there, to allow you to go around and sort of identify those things that you feel are most important. And maybe your ideas, you may hear an idea from somebody else that you feel is critical. And so you may decide, one of my 4 votes, I'm going to vote for that item. So that will help us aggregate the information. I can't remember who said it in the back. That'll help us aggregate it and come back at a future meeting and talk more. Okay. So can we continue? Like I said, let me run through I heard you. Let me run through the introduction, and you guys can have your group conversation. What's that? That's fine. I don't think we need to take a vote, but let me talk a little bit about the information.
I personally think there's more geography. If you look at these maps, not to say anything about what is the park now that y'all know and love. There's more geography, and I want to hear about what's going on with that. So give them a chance. Give them a chance. Sorry for interrupting.
So the Maryland Regional Park right now is about 124 acres of open space. And if you look at the maps up on the wall, I'm going to use the aerial map. Right now, that's the blue area, the blue shaded area is the regional park, 124 acres. There's additional lands that are going to be transferred to the city from the Navy as they achieve no further action, as they achieve a final cleanup. I want to say current, but the next one coming up, the soonest transfer, is the orange area, which is called the Western Magazine area that's off to the west. We expect that to happen probably in the next year or so. It has achieved it's achieved cleanup, and they're just going through the paperwork process right now. The pink/purple area on the southern tip is still undergoing remediation and will eventually be transferred. But all told, and that's 2023, 2024, all told, there's more than 300 acres that eventually is going to be incorporated into the Mare Island Park. Once it's all done, over 330. That includes over 50 historic buildings, some 200,000+ square feet between those buildings that are out there. A lot of them are in these areas that haven't yet been transferred. The area is restricted for public and recreational use. This is not an area that's available for anything other than public and recreation use. There's never been a design on this for anything other than what the task force says and what the map shows you there, which is designated for public use. This issue came up it has been around for a while, but in March of this year, 2019, I think it was the 17th and 18th of March, Council had their goal-setting session. And in the goal-setting session, they among many priorities, one of those priorities they identified was to identify a long-term strategy, a strategy for the long-term maintenance and operations of the park. Not just the 124 acres we have now, but the whole 300+ acres in the coming years as it gets incorporated. And so that led staff to figure out, well, how do we proceed in that process? In late May, Council took action to ask staff to issue an RFQ, request for qualifications, to find a user who would propose how to manage and operate the park and enter into a formal agreement with the city. This is a formal process that we have not had ever on the park, ever on the island. And so this would be to City Council's goals. What is the long-term strategy for maintenance operations? What is the sustainable strategy to make sure that this lasts for decades into the future? The purpose of the RFQ, and you have that in your packet here tonight, but summed up in essence was to find a formal agreement, but specifically, and I think this is one of the main reasons we're here tonight, because what you see, these kind of a regional park that provides, and there's some dash points there. These were the sort of no-brainers that we thought any regional park should have these things. Protection of the park's natural resources, maximum recreational educational opportunities to the public, operating hours which keep it open to the public 7 days a week. Yes. Sorry. A strategic plan for how to fund it. Right? This is not something that the city is going to be able to fund. So like any kind of land trust or public park, having a sustainable funding source that would not only sustain it, but grow over the next 2-3 decades. Provide for the security and safety of visitors, safety upgrades and security of the buildings. A lot of those are not entirely safe. And as we get more of those, we have to make sure that those are structurally safe and sound. And to coordinate and to provide that coordination with the community and with the volunteers, because anytime you're running a park, if you want to keep your operating costs low, you have to take advantage of the volunteers that you have in your community. Those are the people that have sustained it thus far, and those are the people that are going to be critical to sustaining it in the future. So in long and short, that was my, mostly short, that was my introduction. If you guys want to have a group discussion, we're happy to do that. I'm just telling you right now, we're not going to be able to record the information in any kind of meaningful format.
We want everybody to be able to speak.
Can I see a show of hands of everybody who wants to have a free-for-all discussion? Sorry. Everybody who wants to have a single group discussion for the next hour and 5 minutes. I have to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. At 38. Anybody think there's more than 75 people here?
I have a question. Why can't you record the single, each person that wants to speak?
Because in 2 minutes, the idea of breaking it up into small groups is that we're able to hear the feedback from people in a smaller group. We're able to distill that and make sure that we can summarize it correctly. Because staff, what's that? The 3 of us up here, the city staff up here, and it's going to be written in front of you. So the purpose is we write it and we make sure we confirm that that's accurately summarizing what it is that you say. It also allows everybody to say more, because instead of waiting around for everybody to talk, we can have smaller groups where everybody gets more of a chance to talk. So I got 38-4. Can I see a show of hands of people who would like to continue with the structure we have set up? I'm going to ballpark that at less than 38. All right, have at it. Justin wants me to point out that, at the conclusion of the small groups, we did have a share back where we would come back as a single group and a spokesperson from each group would identify those items that, got the most attention, the most dots, so to speak. So there would be a chance to share. I don't know if that changes your mind. I'm assuming not. Okay. We got to get out of here as soon as possible.
Somebody serve as a timer?
I got it.
We're not getting anything.
So, Greg, I'm city manager, certainly want to support having this conversation about what we want for our park in the future. And I've heard comments about Chiefs Candidates Forum. Somebody said how poorly that worked. It actually worked fantastic for me because it gave us a lot of input, and every group came back out and said, hey, this is what we found, this is what we heard, this is what we heard. It saved from repetitive conversation happening all the time. And this is about our park, the city of Vallejo's park, right? The city of Vallejo's park. The city of Vallejo's park. The city, it's the whole community. And we're looking at things like, so I've walked the refuge out there many, many times out there. It's the refuge. 7.
The preserve.
So ask you a question. What is the San Pablo? What is it? Refuge? The San Pablo Bay Refuge? It's what it says. No, but here's what I'm saying to you all. Here's what I'm saying. Well, okay, so if you guys want to go tonight and have your time and have it recorded, okay. But I mean, what we want to do is say, do you want things like, you want to open 7 days a week? No! You know, I'm not doing that. So I had the pastor over on the other side, on the mainland, African American church, one of the biggest churches. He didn't know what to preserve my God. He said, what an opportunity for our kids. So we want to do things for education. That was the purpose of this, to say, what do we want here at the park? Do we want camping? Does that complement the preserve, or is it different? So that was the purpose of this. I think you actually save time. You get in groups and you talk, and you don't repeat and say, yeah, we're all in favor of that, you're all in favor. But, you know, we saw the numbers, you're here to speak, and make a point. So, yes, we'll move that way. I'm not sure that we'll get what we wanted out of it. It comes to what do we want for our reserve. But certainly, let it go there. And I see many of you saying that's what we want to do.
Yeah, let's
So, yes, we'll do it.
2 minutes, so that's 30 speakers.
My name is Carla Jewell. I live on University Avenue here in Vallejo. I came to this meeting to be part of the process of saying what I see the preserve staying or becoming. I would love for it to be an all-inclusive area for not just Vallejoans, but all people that want to come here. I would love to see it stay low cost or free, again, for inclusive reasons of low income versus high income. It is for all people. It is not just for the people that are becoming residents and are strictly onto Mare Island. I would love to see it become a very clear bike lane areas, pedestrian friendly areas, even dog areas that maybe off-leash areas, but have very concise, clear plans so that we see a very distinctive, so the city has direction from us, not just criticisms. I would love for it to remain open 7 days a week, during day hours only. I can see where the camping was a wonderful fundraising opportunity, and maybe working with the city and on both parts being communicative and open-minded and clear communication and transparency on both sides to get this done. We can get this done. We obviously have people that want to be involved with this, are excited about this area. I want to make sure as a citizen of Vallejo that it stays park area, preserve, whatever we end up calling it. Myrna, I know personally because I used to work at the Valero Refinery with community relations, has worked tirelessly in pursuing the Flyways Festival, getting people out there to see the wonderful species of birds. Oh, and I'm sorry, and there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mike Setti. I worked for 20 years
from 1985 to 2005 as the city's transit planner, and I was involved in the startup and delivery of the ferry system, among other things. This is a kind of a typical thing with the city of Vallejo, and it way predates Greg coming to here as city manager. And I just want to point out, I'll make about 3 short points. First of all, there was a plan that was done 11 years ago. So it's not like this is all new or anything. And this, given the almost no resources, Myrna and her group have done fantastically well, in my opinion. The second point is that I don't know what the real agenda is here. I don't understand why this RFQ is even on the table at this point. I think it's an issue that might really should be deferred, and the Heritage Trust should be allowed to continue until there's a regional park district, which I understand will be on the 2020 ballot. So there's where your money would come from, assuming the voters approve it. So why are we doing this now? I don't know. I don't see, you know, given the fact that Myrna's budget's been under $50,000 a year for all until the recent last 2 years, they've done fantastically well. And why are we throwing out the baby with the bathwater? Thank you. Potentially, with this progress, this process, I don't see the need for right now.
If anybody wants a copy of what Mike's referring to, this was a city-appointed.
That's correct, and you're going to post it on the Facebook page.
Next up, just to clarify, nobody's kicking anybody out. I know that's the rumor and that's what people want to say, but nobody's kicking anybody out. This is a process that we invite Myrna and her group and anybody else to either collaborate on, to cooperate on, to solely propose. This is simply a formality. This is how cities do, municipalities do business. You have an open, transparent call. So.
Hi, my name is Brad Beltane. In my opinion, the proper stewards of this land are the Karkin Ohlone tribe. I think that they should be brought into the process, work with Myrna. And I want to point out that as of 1909, there was a partially disturbed shell mound around here. Oh, I'll try that. Okay. That one? All right. Anyway, the partially disturbed shell mound on the area that we're talking about, that blue area, they need to be involved.
Hi, my name is Daniel Boone. I just want to say I have been on the preserve dozens and dozens of times. I have spoken to hundreds of people who have been using the preserve in all different ways, sitting at the visitor center, hiking, biking, birding, all of those things. I have never heard one person using the preserve say, hey, there's really something wrong with this preserve. I wish, fill in the blank. Every person I have ever talked to has extolled how beautiful it is. It's undeveloped, perfect, nature's condition. And I'll echo the other speaker. I don't know what we're doing here, other than the city has suddenly woken up after 11 years and said, something's got to change. Why? It's perfect.
Hi folks, Jim again. My history is I was a member for 3 years of the general plan working group that rewrote our general plan. Hope you guys like it. The point from that is we had public hearings, more than 25 across the city during that 2.5 years, and we broke, each one of them broke into small groups, but that was 2.5 year process. To consider this tonight and break into small groups. It's one meeting. So if you're going to propose breaking into small groups, then you better schedule a lot more of this meeting. Okay, number two, just riffing off my concept for the preserve could be either like the Presidio Trust. We have a trust. So simply stay, don't reinvent the wheel. We've got to trust, support it. Or I took a recent tour of the ammunition depot, and our group at the end of the tour said, gee, isn't this a lot like Angel Island? Wouldn't this be a great state park? So I would hope that some of us eventually, either of those, and then I've got a practical question as to just about to get off the Architecture, Heritage, and Landmarks Commission. I'm hoping that whoever manages this park and this historic, fabulous buildings at the ammunition depot from 1857 will be subject to AHLC review. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peggy Cassidy, and I really have only one major concern, and since that's the one that's most important to me, I'm going to say it. There's a number of concerns, but it's specific to wildlife at the preserve, and by wildlife I include some of the native plant species as well as all of the many animals to which the current guardians have been pretty good stewards to. So I'm really, really concerned with the spraying of glyphosate substances, and I want that to stop. I really would like that to stop all over Vallejo. It's stopped in several different cities in the Bay Area. Vallejo is just as socially conscious as all those other cities. We need to stop doing that. It's the easy way out. Use manual weed killers, organic pesticides if you have to use any pesticides at all. Just get with the 21st century. Let's be kind to our animals, kind to our wildlife. It was so sad to me to see the miner's lettuce killed. Miner's lettuce is a beautiful native species. You can eat it. It's historic all over the Bay Area, and it was killed by the weed killers completely unnecessarily. So that's my particular issue, and I hope you heard it. I also want to say if there's anybody that feels shy about coming up and standing this way and would prefer to speak from their chair or has a disability that makes it difficult for them to come up here, maybe I volunteer to bring the mic to you where you sit. So after this line is finished, if you wanted to raise your hand and do it that way, that might work.
Can you say if they'd rather not speak, they
Can you say that?
If they'd rather not speak, they can grab a pen and write.
Oh, okay, and then that's a good suggestion. If you'd rather not speak at all, if you're shy about that, you can write your idea on that board. They're your most salient concerns. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Pavan. When I came here from Napa about 15 years ago, I was about ready to leave, and then I came across the preserve. And after that experience, I decided to stick around. Now, my uncle was a World War II vet. He worked 35 years on Mayor Island. He was a welding inspector. He inspected the submarines, the wells. So Vallejo is part of my history. And so if you had a piece of land and you wanted someone to take care of it, my personal opinion is Myrna Hayes is the person to do that. She does it without any pay. She makes so much extra effort in taking care of that park like it's her child. So nobody else that you could find, nobody else would be able to do it as good as her. So that's my own opinion. But the other thing is that we're doing here, and is that they've got other areas over here. The buildings that they're talking about that bringing in, not the blue area, but the green and also the purple, those areas, it should be a different matter. It's not part of the preserve. It should be totally separate. So if the city wants to go in and put a golf course on the other ones, that's fine. But I vote to keep the preserve, and that's it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Farrell. We moved to Vallejo just 7 months ago, so we don't have the years of experience and involvement at the preserve that many of you do. But we followed our granddaughters here and first moved to Benicia, discovered it was too sleepy, and that all of our friends who we were making live in Vallejo. And one of the reasons we wanted to live in Vallejo was the preserve. And not just hiking in the vistas there, but because the community that has been formed there. And the community is what carries off the Flyway and Osprey Festival, the Mother's Day Tea, the bird watching hikes, and many other special activities and events. And I don't see that precious value of the preserve listed in what the city envisions for the preserve. That's far more important to me than 7 days a week access, and that the city has not seen that precious value in the preserve means to me there's such a fundamental disconnect that City Hall doesn't understand what the preserve is to our community. I'm a retired government official. This is not the way cities conduct business. They don't start going down a path without talking to the key people who have an interest in it and have shown over the years, and it's not one person, it's not obviously just Myrna Hayes, it's many of you in this room. Together we should be planning these meetings. Somebody said 2.5 years of small group discussions. Of course that's necessary for something this complicated. We couldn't break into groups of 30 tonight and in 2 minutes each come up with some sensible RFQ. We're not ready to do that at all tonight. And to suggest that that was the plan means I wonder how much people care about the Mare Island Preserve community. Thank you.
My name is Jason Kishinev, and it seems to me that the preserve already has somebody taking the really good care of it. And this seems like a shameful political ouster against somebody who's not involved in politics. And the heritage preserve should be codified so that the next person can step up, and we shouldn't be attempting to privatize the Mare Island Preserve.
Hi, Kathleen Dyhep. I want to bring a different thread to this. This needs funds. I mean, I think it has to last beyond the vision of one person. It needs to be permanently administered by a park entity. And I spent last year as director of real estate at Fort Mason Center. You know how that was created? The Park Service gave it to a nonprofit, a collection of artists that did it. They gave them money, they fundraised into it. You couldn't do that now. There isn't money out there. And there isn't the money in Vallejo. If there was, we would have been getting there. So there's got to be a way to come together and support this, because the bigger pots of money beyond those in this room, unless there's somebody who has that, aren't going to step forward either to respond to an entity, to contribute, to donate to this, unless they feel like this community is pulling together. And there is definitely some real estate there that might have uses that need it. These are really horrific, old historic buildings. They take a lot of money to renovate. Before I worked for Vallejo, I worked for the Port of San Francisco. The reason we saved 1880s buildings was because Uber is the tenant now. I mean, there isn't that land value here. So I don't know what the solution is, but it isn't blaming each other. And I have a lot of respect for Myrna, and I've sat in rooms and tried to negotiate with Myrna. We need to empower her, we need to engage volunteers, but we need a parks entity. City of Vallejo committed in the 90s to make 2/3 of Mare Island open space with virtually no economic model. We might have to reopen that conversation.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Gaya. I've owned my home here for 25 years, and I agree with everything that was just said. However, my vision won't take 2 minutes, so I just want to thank the powers that be for letting us do it this way, because I've been to 3 giant meetings, the police captain input, the districting elections, and the planning commissions, where we broke into small groups, And my good friend that sits next to me thought it worked great. I thought was very frustrated. I thought a whole lot was lost. And Mr. Nyhoff, you might have, I don't know where you are, you might have thought everything got summarized and put up. And I remember objecting there, because things that were said passionately in my group didn't get up on those papers, and it was the city people who were writing that. So it felt like almost it was done for show. That was my feeling for these meetings. Okay, so I also want to point out that there's, for instance, I thought of the Stonewall Inn in New York has just been made part of the National Park System as a historical designee. John Muir in Martinez is a historical park. Maybe there's a thing like that on the state or regional level, that the historical value of this place can get extra funds. So having said that, my vision is I have a disability. I can walk for 2 hours straight, and when I've been there a number of times, and I do want to thank Myrna and all her volunteers. On the other side, I want to say it's not perfect. People do have complaints. Maybe they're too shy to say them tonight. There needs to be a process. But I was just overwhelmed with gratitude that she, out of the goodness of her heart, opens it on Christmas up until midnight, on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, Christmas Day. And I went up there on Christmas night with all the lights, and it was exhilarating, but I could get about a quarter of the way up after walking the long ways, and I was in tears. I just couldn't make it. Oh, well, I didn't know that. It's not stated anywhere. And this blessed volunteer was driving up there, and she gave me a ride the rest of the way up and back home, and so I got to experience it. So just please keep in mind the seniors who don't have the ability to walk up that lovely hill. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Susan Glover. I have been a tax-paying resident of Vallejo since 2003. I have lived many places in this glorious United States, and I just want to take a minute and say how great it is that we're all talking about this amazing amount of parks land. And for the person who was talking about how great it was that San Francisco was taken over by Uber, not so great. It does take money to manage having a park, but the most important thing it takes is fortitude and an understanding that there needs to be wild space for the health of the people and the ecology of where we live here. I mean, we can build up everything, we can sell everything, we can build on everything, but it's not going to do us any good. We need to keep it open. We need to keep it a place where we can walk. I think camping is a fabulous idea. There's lots of places to camp if you have an RV and you want to drive 3 hours and make a reservation and camp right next to someone. That's not the best part about this place, is that you can go there and you can walk there when you need it. It's ours. Let's treasure it. All together, we can do this. It doesn't take that much money. This is the Bay Area. There is so much money. There's not a lot of open space that hasn't been built on yet. Okay? Let's just keep our eye on the ball and focus. We can do this. We don't have to give in. We don't have to worry about money. We need to have integrity. We need to understand, as you said, this is a generational plan. We're going to make this happen and be open and available, not just for us, but for the generations that come. That's the most important thing. I just wanted to say that. And one last thing. Myrna was one of the very first people I met in this town, and she has turned me on to the best stuff in this town. All of the Tiffany windows, I wouldn't know about those if not for this woman, okay? She's a saint.
Hi, my name is Myrna Hayes. Most of you know me. And you either love me and want me to become a saint, be made a saint, or I've heard some other things on Facebook, haven't I? Some things may or may not be true, by the way. That's the way life is. I want to make sure that you know that we aren't just starting this process today, this public process. This public process went on from the day that Bechtel and Shell announced that they were planning a liquefied natural gas tanker terminal and 1,500 megawatt power plant on the property that we now have designated, along with Google, as the Mare Island Shoreline Heritage Preserve. Now, people wanted a park. They wanted an assurance that they weren't going to get some crook or some secret deal, whoever it was made with, anymore ever again on that property. So the mayor in Tintley, appointed 35 of us. He was going to cover all bases. And we spent 4 years with staff support. I don't know why it took us that long, but it did. And finally, we asked for a consultant. The city of Vallejo put out an RFP. They got 2 respondents. They selected one, and those people spent $75,000 of your money already to ensure that there was public involvement, that there was a wide overview and review after 4 years of us digging and digging and digging for a model. Fort Mason was one, Skyline Wilderness Park was another, and I want to tell you that there was plenty of this kind of public involvement. You might not have been born yet, or you may not discovered the preserve yet, or you may have participated in that. But he came along, and guess what? City of Vallejo, you're falling into bankruptcy. You're falling into a deep hole, and we're going to help you out. So I think that there's a perspective here that people should be aware of, that we're doing the best with what we have. We'd love for you to support us in a bigger way. We think there's lots of opportunities, and that all of those properties that you see are included in the current plan. And it's regional, it's a recreation and open space for a reason. The Navy is leaving behind an ammunition depot. You're not going to be able to use it for a lot of other uses. You can't even dig in the soil. We have plans for all of that. Go back and read our task force report and come here on September 18. We'll continue that conversation in a more informal way. Thank you.
My name is Lina Villanes. Excuse my accent, but I hope you understand what I'm talking about. The preserve is, by definition from the World Heritage Committee, is defined as a cultural property that represents combined work of man and nature. So the preserve is a cultural landscape, by definition by the World Heritage Committee. It signifies the interconnection of land, air and water, vegetation and wildlife. And it offers a very unique quality that can be differentiated from any cultural landscape in any place in California. So we have to love it. We are lucky that it is here in Vallejo. The only thing is, if you really wanted to have an RFQ, we have to identify what qualifications we are expecting from whoever will manage it in the future. I'm also reading the report prepared by the city manager's office, which states that most of the area is currently operated by a non-profit organization that has no formal contract, association, or oversight with the city. So whose fault is that? Is it the fault of the city, or is it the fault of the non-profit organization? Then therefore we should correct that first. We cannot just oust somebody who had worked very hard on the area without correcting the mistake. Whatever mistake that is, it could, time is up. So that's all I'm saying. If you want an RFQ, make sure that you know what qualifications you're looking for, and we have to give them the guideline of what we can do and what we cannot do in the preserve.
Hi, my name's Jen Belleville, and I moved here about 10 years ago. And the Preserve is my sanctuary. I met Myrna 10 years ago, and the Preserve, the whole entire Mare Island is like acoustic ecology. I'm a sound artist, so I hear everything. I want to record everything. Something I want, one point for the Preserve is let's make it also a residency for artists to come, for them to record music. We started Resound, and so we've had over 5 years in one of the old munitions depot, and artists come from Switzerland, from the UK, from Japan to play in the munitions depot because of the sound. So I want to keep that going. So I hope that moving forward, we can form a partnership to make sure that arts and education continues, to make it diverse, to create education with music, visual, anything like that. Also for for kids with special needs, and just make it very diverse. So thank you, Myrna, for making it happen for so long. I don't know what I would do without the Preserve, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Carlin Lewis. I'm not a Vallejo resident, but I am of Solano County. Since the mid-1980s, I've served on various open space and land use committees. I am currently the vice chair of the Citizens Advisory City for Solano Open Space. That's a committee that the City of Vallejo participates in. As part of my work on the Solano Open Space Committee, I administer the website, and on there we have a list of all the different public open spaces that you can visit in the county. I've been to every one of those, and I can tell you that the Mare Island Shoreline Heritage Preserve is unique in the county, and I know how it fits, and I know what it benefits for the whole, not just for Solano County, but the whole region. My husband and I have volunteered doing hikes on the Western Magazine and the South Shore, and we've been to many, many things that the Preserve has offered. Another thing that I do on the website is I keep a list of what outdoor activities and events there are for each month, and I can tell you that the Mare Island Preserve always has something going on, and it's a whole wide range of things that nowhere else in the region actually offers.
And we have that noted that there's no place else offers the same array of events as the Preserve. Could that please be in the notes?
Can I go now? It seems like the reason that we're here tonight kind of boils down to the old tale about the little red hen. And the little red hen, of course, would be the Mare Island Preserve people who have been doing what they do without much funding or support from Vallejo. And now that the bread, which of course is the Preserve in our story, has risen beautifully, baked perfectly, and smells wonderful, why is the city of Vallejo wanting to grab it, the whole loaf? So I think that it's not just a Vallejo issue, it's an issue for the whole county. Sorry.
Okay, so if we can be mindful of the 2-minute time limit, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deanna Lang, and I worked to get rid of that LNG facility on the end of Mare Island, and have enjoyed the Preserve and the wacky, wonderful, very Vallejo things that are happening out there. I'm going to be critical. I'm going to be critical first of the city. I think this was handled terribly. I think you really underestimated the passion of the people. This is a conversation that I know has been had with several people behind closed doors, and you thought, let's bring it forward, let's have a conversation. This is not the format, this is not the way. It's been very adversarial, and conversely on the other side, there's been hyperbole and fractious and fictitious and malicious behavior as well on park preserve people. So I'm here to say I've done battles. I don't want this to be a battle. It doesn't need to be. Actually, really, tonight has been a great coming together. There's been fantastic ideas, and I don't think anybody doesn't want everything that's already been said. My point is the mechanism to do so. What I see is moving into the future. So let's not parse out what's happened in the past. Let's look at the future. What is the entity? What is the responsible organization that's a nonprofit that is organized, of size, with abilities, and hopefully people with backgrounds working on boards, of raising funds, of leveraging our ability to tap into regional monies, because it is a regional park. That's what it was identified in 1996 to be. We have other models that we can learn from. It cannot be an us versus them. A 3-person board is not sufficient. This is a much big, we're talking doubling and more in size. So I want you to look at the future, and please look at a larger organization, because it is our public asset, not theirs, ours. What do we want to make of it?
Hello, my name is Seamus Thornton. I'm a 19-year resident here in Vallejo. I've been going to the preserve for quite some time. So my vision for the preserve is to include all of the activities that are currently supported. We have a beautiful Halloween Scare Island out there. We've got Christmas activities. I did the Women's March out there. I loved being able to do the Women's March here in Vallejo. All right. I want to expand and see bicycle paths along this area here. I'm very excited that the area will be reopened. We can ride bikes all the way to the end. Beautiful views out there. You can see migrating birds. It's really, really incredible. I'd also like to see the visitor center spruced up. You know, it's almost just the bunker style as it is right now. I'd really love to see that much more attractive and up to code and everything like that. What else? I loved what Brad suggested about the Ohlone Indians. This land was theirs for thousands of years before we came along. I would love to see markers and information and shell mounts. Over at Olompali State Park, they have Miwok villages. It's educational. It's beautiful. It's really a good idea to expand our culture. I can't think of anything else I want to say. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gordon McMahon. I started volunteering at the Preserve back in 2011. Anyway, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First, how special it really is. When I hang around out there, one of my favorite lines, and many of you or some of you here may have heard it, go ahead and walk up to the top of that hill. It is beautiful. The view just gets better and better the higher up you go. And I also tell folks, no one that I've ever convinced or asked to go up there has ever come back and told me they regretted doing it. It's that type of place. It is just, it's beautiful, that view. Another beautiful thing, the wildlife that's returning. Another thing that I do as a volunteer is I take walks, I lead walks along the South Shore. And there's a eucalyptus grove now that's probably has 40 at least great white egrets living in it. There's osprey, there's great blue herons. It's just amazing the wildlife down there in addition to the special plants. So it is a special place. No one that is saying the preserve is perfect, but I do know that Myrna has put a lot of time into it, and her heart is in the right place, definitely, and that's what it needs. Reading this proposal that the city has put out, that was part of the proposal on May 28th, as I see it, it allows a private entity to come in there. It opens that up as a possibility. I mean, anyone that's involved with the preserve would not object, I don't think, or most people would not object if we were talking about a state park or a regional park, someone that we know is going to keep it as a park. The way it's set up now, negotiations, What's the city going to negotiate for a private developer? We just don't know all that. What private entity is going to take control over it? That's all I have to say.
I've been a park user for many years, and one thing that I would like to see is the brown areas and the purple areas, whatever color they are, added to the preserve. They give different experiences. You're closer to the wetlands and the brown areas. On the south shore, the purple area, you're right up on could be right up on the water's edge. How special is that? It's not the same as the hill. It's all good. But what I really want to see is this island is about history. It's about the history of the Navy, history about the Indians, history about the environmental cleanup, history about reuse, history about the preserve so far. I suggest that the city staff and everybody else here take the opportunity to read this. It's a really good summary of the history of what Myrna has already built, the preserve. And I think the city should build on this history. A lot of planning has already gone into this process. Build on that. Don't discard it for something unknown. And then one more thing. I think there's a distrust here about the way the city is handling things. The city has not done a good job with a number of things out here. The city took the cemetery, took title to the cemetery without a condition that they would get money from the federal government or their own money to manage and maintain that cemetery. That's kind of absent-minded in my book. How do you do that with no money? And that's why we have an ugly cemetery in need today. Sorry about that. Is that better? The city took title to a property that was contaminated, that wasn't cleared by the state. And that meant that the city took responsibility for the cost of cleaning up that property. How mindless is that? There are several deed restrictions out here because of the residual contamination. Several deed restrictions out here because of the residual environmental contamination. And they're not being followed very well. Where is the city when it comes to that? And one more thing. You said you said transfer these properties NFA. I'm not sure what your job is with the city, but you just told me that you don't understand the process, and that's pretty serious. NFA means there is no residual contamination. There's no need for any monitoring or maintenance of residual contamination. And that's a problem. I'm concerned about the city, and they need to develop more confidence from the public.
Yes, I'm aware of the 2-minute time limit. I want to thank everybody who made time out to take time to learn more and stand up for the special place of the preserve. Everyone. It is a special place. I would like to see us honor what's special about it and keep what's special about it. To honor the native land, the wildness, the nature. There's so few places like that, and nature is so good for your health. I think we also should honor all the community that has grown this special place. We can't forget that part either. You know, maybe Vallejo doesn't have a lot of money, but we have a lot of enthusiasm. We have a lot of time. We have a lot of people commit. And that's what we're seeing today is things that can't be bought. And, and I don't want to lose sight of that. I also think it's pretty exciting about the rest of the land, and I also think preserving the history is really important, the historic buildings. But it takes a lot of capital for that, and I'm really wondering if it's the same person that can develop historic housing and a park, and maybe it should be a partnership for the different pieces. with the different needs and different expertise. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Edwards. I've been here in Vallejo for 30 years, and I am Myrna Hayes' neighbor, and I've been knowing her for that amount of time. She has had a labor of love out there on that preserve, day in and day out. They have an RFQ here. Anyone that think that she is not the person who is qualified to take care of that area out there has to be out of their mind. You could go to the University of Los Angeles and get someone with a doctorate degree and will not be able to take care of that place like she can. So I don't know why we have an RFQ. You have your manager right there. So I just want to say we need to support her and keep her on that property as long as we can. Everybody, please, thank you.
I know, 2 minutes, I got it. Oh, tell me if I'm too loud. Okay. I want us to communicate. We're not ever all going to agree on everything. I want us to all communicate. We're not ever going to agree on everything. The communication is really important, and that is what has me so upset, is that our city doesn't communicate. Is the city manager still hiding in the closet? Are you the asset guy that won't go out to the Mirp Preserve and talk to Myrna? I want communication. I want us to talk so that we can find our common ground and get where we all need to be, not for the benefit of a handful.
Ken Sutu. I have 4 points. The first one is, I think the community have a general concern about keeping the land to be in public use. So we wanted to see a guarantee in one way or the other. The land will be for public use forever. Because we saw like Blue Rock Golf Course, which is under the city management, and recently it has been sold. So we don't want to see that happen. That's the first thing. The guarantee the land will be used by the public forever. The second one is, I wanted to repeat what Brian said earlier, is the community which we have at the preserve. You can see here the city envisioned a regional park that provides, and which doesn't include the community. If you look at the Mirp Island, right next to the preserve, there is a trail. If you compare these two, I mean, it's the same geographic location and same water, same land, but there's a huge difference. And the difference is because the community. And I don't see this community as part of the thing which the city values. So I wanted to include that as our goal. The next one is, I think we, as many people show here, Myrna has put in a lot of time and effort to maintain this reserve. So I don't know what is going to be the overall at the end, what is going to be the composition of this preserve, but I truly believe Myrna needs to be included and be respected. Okay, she might not be the only one, but she needs to be included, respected, and consulted. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to say anything?
I'd like to say what I had to say to the end because I have some very weird experiences. Where we can't hear you, you have a microphone.
I will take only 2 minutes, maybe a minute. So I have been involved over 30 years in dozens of West Coast tribal, military, decommissioned areas, low-income communities, and I find a lot of times when a silent shut off from the community takeover of a project, trading hands of property happens, it usually comes down to federal and state money being funneled to people's personal pockets, not to the actual funding of the project itself. This is maybe not intentional by everybody who's involved, but you know what? The only way we can have any of this come to fruition in a positive way is going to be through pure transparency. One of the things that I have seen in the last 5 years was real estate developers literally selling properties out from under people illegally. That was going on beyond me in the last 15 years in Alameda County, and our city officials were involved in that. It was pretty disgusting. That's not maybe what's going on here, but I have seen way too much that I'm not going to get into right now. There was about $3 million that I was about a month from being on the hook for restoring a theater in Oakland because our own realtor was trying to sell the property out from under us to somebody else. They did not believe that we could pay $15,000 every month, and there was somebody else already signing. It was a big fiasco. And where are we at with time? There are at least 5 other things. How many? Well, in 24 seconds, anybody who wants to talk with me, I'm going to be getting a hold of Myrna. And what's your name in the green? You know what? You have some very good ideas, and my basic idea here is that the community is what has made this wonderful island so incredible, and it has made everybody come here. We can totally come together and get funding from schools. We can get funding from all kinds of people who are trying to develop technology in older wisdom that has been lost over the years. So here we go.
That's it? Nobody else? I'd like to add a couple more points if nobody else. I know I've already spoken. Now you guys go around too. You got 10 minutes. Still late, right? Okay. So just a little bit of background. Myrna and the trust have been trying for years to get an agreement with the city. They have not been able to do it because the city has gone bankrupt, the city has had turnover. Talk to Myrna. She can give you a rundown of the entire history of all the effort she has made to get an agreement with the city. So somebody said, why isn't there an agreement? It's the city, not for lack of trying on Myrna's part. I attended 4 meetings with Myrna and city officials last year. What I heard was, we need to communicate more. We need to communicate more. We need to communicate more. Then the city went up on the preserve without informing Myrna, and they sprayed 5 miles of trail with pesticide, herbicide. That's communication? It's not communication. And this RFQ is basically the city saying, we can't get along with Myrna Hayes. She's blunt. She says what's on her mind. We don't like that. She's also a woman. And there is a long history in our culture of women not being listened to. And they don't want to listen to Myrna. And they don't want to work with Myrna. Where is the proof from the city that they have gone to Myrna and said, look, this is what's in the future. You've been doing this for 11 years. You have more history, more experience than anyone else. What can we do to help you? Where is the city? Where is the city's showing that they have made that effort? We're reading about, oh, there need to be resources. There need to be, we have this RFQ so we can bring in somebody new. Well, why not work with the person that you already have there?
10 minutes left. Does anybody want to talk to them? Yes, want to come up?
I just get the feeling that maybe this preserve isn't, it's a little funky and not tidy enough for the corporate developers that are coming in and want everything to be, just so for the million-dollar developments at multi-million-dollar homes that are going to be built on that golf course, and they don't want anything funky but the thing that is dear to my heart is that the ambiance that you can't duplicate anywhere, that freeness, that lovingness, that the atmosphere is something that you can buy. And to bring in somebody that from the outside to contract and organize where it's already, she just needs a little more help. That's what I think.
I might just take a second turn because...
You want a second turn as well?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Hi there again, Myrna Hayes. Thank you so much, everyone, for mentioning my name. But I'm really one of that 35 task force members that Mayor Tintley appointed. And we stepped up to the plate. And we wrote a report, and we got a consultant. And we've already dealt with all of these colors you see up here. We're not, that blue is just several of the first phases. We had 8 phases. Read our report to the city council. It was accepted, but not adopted. One of the problems you have here is without a park being designated, and without the city of Vallejo saying we're 100% behind every grant request you make, whether it's to Prop 8, a state fund, or to a private foundation. The first question always is, do you own the property? And if not, Bob Berman, you can tell me this, you're on the Solano Land Trust. The second question would be, well, if you don't own the property, who does, and do they support your grant application? And I've been told no, repeatedly, by the city of Vallejo. Sorry, your Prop 8 money or your Prop 40 money is going to have to go through GVRD, and support them and not our grant applications. We had 95 points out of 100 when one of those state grants came around. The other colors that you see, those are included in the Regional Park Task Force report. The Regional Park Task Force report recommended that as the Navy transferred to the city or to the State Lands Commission, then granted to the city, that those parcels come into the park. Why? Because it's zoned recreation and open space. Why? Why? Why is it not houses? Because it's an ammunition depot, people. There will be no digging. You will have land use covenant in perpetuity. I think one gentleman mentioned that the city hasn't been very faithful in keeping track of what's happened to the property they've transferred, for instance, the golf course. So there are reasons why things haven't been done. The reason the park looks a little funky, some people like it, some people hate it, is because not only do we not have vast amounts of money, we also like to accept whatever gift you give us and make it weave in. A woman just called me at the beginning of the week. Her young 25-year-old brother died, and they're sending a redwood tree and a bench and a plaque with his name and his picture on it, and he's a friend of mine. And I'm going to make sure that gets worked into our park. That's how it works. But the other thing is, this is Basenji, for I'm tired of this, too. The thing is, there are restrictions on what we can do in that park right now, right? We're an interim use. You know what that is? We, the city, and we, the community, have not coughed up the money, and GVRD knows about this very well, for the environmental review, the environmental development of the master plan for this property. Therefore, we are very limited in what additions we can make to the property. The city of Vallejo, I can assure you, doesn't know the biological conditions. We do. They don't know has it gone off? They don't know the historical resources. We must work together, folks. We must work together. And communication's the number one. I'm so thankful for you coming out, and we'll be holding another meeting, the Maryland Heritage Trust, on September 18, the same time, same place. Please come back.
So I'm really not the best person to give history of the Ohlone, like, at all. But I do want to give a little bit more background. There was never any, like, treaty made with them. It was just, like, genocide, genocide, genocide. They're still around, but, you know, no deals were made. They are not recognized by the Bureau of Indian Affairs on purpose. Like, it's set up so that they cannot be. The last time Vallejo paved over one of their shell mounds, hundreds of people came out. The agreement was made to preserve it, and then politics worked around it and paved over it anyway. So the attempt at the genocide of the people is ongoing, from when the Spanish first conquered to now.
I was informed at the powwow that we're all used to saying Ohlone, and it's supposed to be Ohlone. So everybody file in your mind saying Ohlone. And at the next meeting, I would love to hear about what I understand in the Skyline Park is a public-private partnership. I'd love to know how that works. Thank you.
All right. We'll have more. I think one of the main messages we heard was, don't cram it in one night. In our defense, we weren't trying to. This was going to be the first, but we'll definitely have more. And I would like to test different models. I think there's different ways we can get some feedback. I appreciate the help of, ma'am, can I have your name? Note taker. What's her name? Gigi? PG. I thank you very much for taking notes there, and we'll continue on. You can find us, but if you want business cards or whatever, come up, and we'll continue forward. That's it. Thank you.